Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining me for episode 25. I got my guy Ben on here. Ben, what's up, man?
Hey man, how you going? Thank you very much for inviting me. It's very cool
Yeah.
to be here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for joining. All right, it's 10-minute Tuesdays. We're 25 of these. Let's go ahead and hop into it, Ben. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
So yeah, I'm Ben. I'm online. I exist as Power BI guy on Twitter, on a little bit on LinkedIn, YouTube, the standard places. I've been working with Power BI since like 2016. It kind of seems like it's getting longer and longer. It used to be like, yeah, just 2016. 2016, that's quite a while. And I do videos on. It used to be a host of different topics, but it's kind of become more specialized into Deneb, which is a way to visualize data in Power BI. That was accidental, but that's pretty much what I do. I make videos. I talk about Power BI, and sometimes people tell me to shut up because I talk about it too much. That's pretty much who I am.
I love it. I love your content, man. There's stuff I'm leveraging, and I'm starting to get a little
Thank
bit
you.
more into Nav. So it's awesome stuff
Cool. Nice.
that you got out there. All right. So 2016, that was your start, I guess, in the Power BI. But what really compels you
Right.
to get into data to begin with?
To be honest, it wasn't like this really obvious decision. It wasn't like, oh yeah, I now want to work with data. It was more like what I didn't want to do. And now I felt I was going down this career path of my next step would be like manager, And I didn't want to be a manager of people without having any like hard skills, And I'd always like enjoyed working with numbers like statistics. I used to like with my dad when I was a kid look at like non-league football stats, or non-league soccer stats, and kind of laugh at all the terrible statistics, all that kind of stuff. And really what happened was I took a job in a controlling department where I was working with Excel, and that led me down this path of, okay, there's Power Query and oh, there's Power BI, and it kind of reignited the passion that I'd kind of forgotten, to be honest. So not a conscious decision, but rather bit by bit by bit, and kind of wanting to have some kind of skill that would make me, continually employable, hopefully anyway.
Yeah, that's always the goal. I think it's
Right.
really credible when people are like, I don't want to take this role without having gone through it or understand,
Mm,
stuff that's needed. And I think, you talk about managing people and stuff, but like I need to understand data and get into it before taking that. I think that's really awesome.
exactly. I think sorry, man. It also probably comes from, like having been managed by people who didn't understand what you're doing, and you don't want to be that person. So yeah, this is pretty much where it comes from. And people might choose that other direction. Of course, I fully respect that, but there was just something inside me that was pulling me like, no, look at the numbers. Go the nerd route.
Awesome. All right. So to date, what has been your least favorite job that you had?
Yeah, I think I've been pretty lucky in regard to the jobs that I've done, or maybe I've just kind of approached them with the annoyingly positive mindset. I've never had a job that I would really consider terrible. I've done, when I did bar work, when I did call centers, this was all fine. It was great for my age. Um, but really, a, a job that I really haven't a negative experience to look back on, or kind of left it in a negative way, was probably actually my first ever office job. I mean, I worked as a flight attendant for 3 years as well, and there were large parts of that I really didn't enjoy. But what I took out of it was something positive. Like I learned a skill set. I learned how to work very well as a customer service capacity. But my first ever office job, really was quite a toxic environment. I would say there was, a lot of unpleasantness from management. There was lots of, you know, um, nepotism involved, and it was really, and again, it wasn't the company, it wasn't the job itself, it was simply how I was managed. And I remember a situation where I was the boss of the company called me out in front of everyone for having more sick days than anyone, even though he'd known that going through that year I'd had a pretty like really quite a bad year. My wife had had a miscarriage and I needed surgery, and knowing all those things, it called me out in the middle of the office. And I walked into the office. I was like, Ben, take 10 minutes before you discuss this with him. Calm yourself down. So then I did that, and I walked into his office and I knocked on the door, and I was like, "Do you have a second?" I was this little like humble person going to the office, to see the boss. And I told him, I was like, I found that a bit surprised that you mentioned that. And he turned around and he went off it on me. He was like, "I could fire you whenever I want. Ask anyone out there. I could get anyone else to do your job." And I was like, "Okay." So that the next week I just handed in my notice, and I was like, "So do it, what I mean? I don't need that."
That's insane. That is absolutely insane.
And I tell you what, when I left that company and I started like working at a quite large German company, and at the next company that I joined, like we were like sharing stories, and it was funny. Everyone had that really bad boss story. And I find it sad because that's the person that they are. But to me, they're always going to be remembered just as that terrible person, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that kind of like clicked something in me that I never wanted to treat people that, I mean, I never would anyway, because I'm not that sort of person, but I would never want to represent that in someone's life, just to have that overtly negative experience that when years later, someone asks me the question, "What's your least favorite job to date?" It's that because of you, you know?
That's great viewpoint, great perspective, definitely. Of you never know the impact you'll have, good or bad, right? Years later,
Yeah.
someone's like bringing you up in an interview. That's so funny. All right. So, what would you consider your biggest failure, with quotation marks around failure, and what did you learn from that experience?
That's a good question, man. So, biggest failure. Sometimes I think that's a good question to ask someone else about me, Um, they know better what my failures are. But I would say, probably in a strange way, when I worked for a really big German multinational corporation, lots of departments, loads of like things to do. And I moved to from a controlling department to a department that worked with RPA. And it was a move that I was initially like unsure about. I really liked the boss. She was a great person. I was excited about the team. And though it wasn't a failure in that regard, I got to the team and I realized it wasn't a good fit. As in, not with the people, but rather the job that I was there to do. I realized that basically I could just sit there and I could just kind of like coast and not learn anything. And that maybe I was kind of like the job description didn't really suit what I wanted to do. And so eventually, after just a few months, I went back to my previous department. Now, that I'm listing as a failure simply because it's something that just didn't work out. I took that decision to do that, and it was the wrong decision. And what I learned from it really was to trust my initial feeling, to kind of realize that I actually knew myself very well, because it's the only job to date that I've taken, and I took it despite an instinct saying, maybe that's not a good idea. Maybe this is not the right move for you. And I probably took it for the wrong reasons. And I learned to trust myself, as I say, but also I learned from myself that I'm the sort of person who always needs to be stimulated. I always need to have new problems being solved, or have someone kind of like asking me questions, or I need to ask them questions. I can't be in an environment where I just kind of like sit there, have stuff to do and do it, and not like test myself, not like have to experiment with new stuff. Because that's what it was. It was just sit there, create some Power BI reports, but I was the only one doing that job. So
Yeah.
I kind of felt that really what I should have done was initially listen to myself and say, maybe that's not right. But from it, I understood that, my instinct was correct,
Yeah.
and also that I need that stimulation, basically. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. That gut feeling, that intuition, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
like that matters.
Mm.
And I think we all have to go through experiences where we didn't trust it. And you're like, dang it, I should have trusted that feeling.
Yeah. 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 Exactly.
Cool.
Oh
Awesome.
man, love it.
All right. So, what is one piece of advice you would give someone starting out in their career?
Um, Probably you're full of good questions, man. Um, the perspective that you have, or yeah, your viewpoint on something, the perspective that you're approaching at something with, is not as correct as you think it is. This is completely what I've learned so many times. The hard way. I've been given opportunities to learn it like the easy way, but it's me, so of course I didn't take them. I had to learn it the hard way. The number of times I've gone into a meeting, I've gone into a project or created something, and I thought, yeah, this is correct. What I've done here is the correct way. And someone else walks in and they look at it and they're like, no, I don't understand that. Or this is just, and I at first I was like, well, how can you not understand it? It's right there. I've written it with words. This is clearly what it's meant to be. This is the or either this is the analysis, or this is what you asked for, or this is the correct way of looking at something. And they just have this, and it's something I never even considered, because it's so easy to create your own bias completely accidentally, because you're like, oh, I've thought of all the viewpoints. I'm really good at my job. There can be no other viewpoints. And this person comes along and just completely shakes your world. And I was like, oh damn, I was like, never thought about that, man. And I really wish I'd known that earlier on. I wish I'd kind of, it sounds like it's arrogant. I don't consider myself an arrogant person, but no matter how much you try, you cannot think of every single viewpoint. That's why you need, all the different whatever departments or
Yeah.
opinions. So just always remember that no matter how much you think you've thought of everything, you really haven't.
That's so good. And that's so true because, especially as a developer or a subject matter expert or whatever, right? This is my baby. This is my project. Like, I know everything about this,
Yeah.
and you couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah, it's so true. It's ridiculous. I mean, honestly, the number of times you have like your project, or you create this wonderful report, and it's like, here is the report and it is awesome. It's like, ooh. And then someone just walks in, they're like, that doesn't make any sense. What does that do? Explain this. I'm like, how can you not understand it? It's like, hello, data person, clearly I know. And it's like, it's the user perspective as well. It falls into the same category. You
Yeah.
think as a data person, you've put in all the terms that a user needs, but you can't be them. You can't be other people.
Can't at all. Can't at all. Cool. All right, Ben. This was great. Where can listeners find you at online?
You can find me online at YouTube/Power BI guy. Or youtube.com, of course. I think you didn't need to say that part. Twitter, Power BI guy. I have a website also, powerbiguy.co, not .co and not .com. I couldn't afford that extra M, just the .co. That extra M would have sent me back an extra like 3,000 euros now. So it was like .com for 3,000 euros, or .co for like 14 euros.
Yeah.
.co.
.co.
Right, exactly. So this is my three. I've got LinkedIn as well, of course, but my main stuff for posting is YouTube, to be honest. Oh, that's where I'm most desperate for the likes and subscribes, is YouTube.
Got it. Y'all heard Ben. Follow him on YouTube. Go to his page. I'm sure I'll have some type of pop out or something when I edit this video that will show the actual page itself and links and everything, and all the description. So thank you so much, Ben, for joining, man. This was great. And if you haven't already, people, please like, share, and subscribe. And we will talk to y'all next week. Y'all have a great day.